Cognitive behavioral therapy is one of those big miracle cure terms in the mental health field. So today we're going to be learning all about it and why it can be so helpful for things like anxiety and depression. Let's dive in. CBT is founded in the belief that our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors are all interconnected. So basically, we have a thought. This thought may lead to an emotional reaction, and then our emotions lead to or fuel our behaviors. To expand on this concept just a bit, our past experiences also play a really big role here. They kind of shape our perspective of the world. They're kind of like our own personal lens, so to speak, that we put on, and that's how we're viewing the world. These past experiences lead to our beliefs, our expectations, our assumptions. They really have a large impact on the way that we go about day-to-day life. The main point of using CBT in therapy is to uncover and maybe even change our unhelpful thought patterns or our unhelpful behavioral patterns. Basically, we're trying to realign our thoughts and behaviors with our values and what we know to be true. So I think we can already kind of start to tell why CBT can be such a helpful tool, just in general, whether in therapy or just using these techniques in day-to-day life. But another really cool thing about CBT is that over the years through research, it has been backed by science to be really helpful. And not only that, but it aligns with how our brains actually operate. Our brains have the incredible ability to change. This is called neuroplasticity. Now, I'm going to guide you through a brief guided imagery type of exercise to kind of paint a picture of what this looks like and how our brains work. So if you can imagine for a second a big field and it's got grass maybe about knee high or so, and you want to get to the other side of this field. Over on your right, you can see a very well-worn pathway. There's really no grass there anymore. It's just completely dirt. So you can tell that it's been traveled a lot of times. And clearly this is the easiest pathway because you don't have to trek over any of the grass or anything like that. It's just a clear pathway to the other side to where you want to go. This is what we would call an automatic thought. These consist of the largest and most well-traveled pathways in our brain. They are the thoughts that are thought the most. We've probably been thinking them since we were really young, so they feel very true and they seem very familiar to us. Now let's imagine this same field again, but this time when we look at walking across the field, we're actually going to choose a new pathway. We're going to make our own pathway. With each step, you stamp down more of the grass until you reach the other side. And when you reach the other side, you look back on the field and you can see your new pathway. Now, it's not as well worn in as that dirt pathway was, but it's definitely easier to travel that way if you choose to. It's likely still a bit harder to travel on this brand new pathway than it would be that dirt pathway, but with time, consistency, repetition, then it becomes a lot more easier to travel over time. And eventually, with this new pathway, the more times that we travel it, then grass is going to start to die. It's going to become its own dirt pathway, and it'll be just as easy to travel that one than it was that first dirt pathway. And as you travel this new pathway more and more and it becomes a dirt pathway, we're not really traveling on that other pathway, which gives it an opportunity to grow grass again, and then that one's going to be a little bit harder to travel, just like the first one. This is kind of how new thought pathways are formed in the brain. With time and consistency and repetition of these new alternate types of thoughts, we can literally rewire our brain. And as we work to rewire our brain, that means that our first thought, our automatic thoughts, can start to become more in alignment with our values and what we know to be true. Okay, so how is this helpful for anxiety and depression? When we experience anxiety or depression, a common theme of both of these is our thought patterns, our not so helpful thought patterns. And when I say thought patterns, I really mean our responses to situations, or really just the time that we spend in our head, either ruminating about the past as we most often do in depression, or if we're worrying about the future as we would do in anxiety. It's spending a lot of time in our head, and when we're in our head, we're having a ton of thoughts. Utilizing CBT can help us become aware of these thoughts, aware of our emotions, aware of any unhelpful patterns that we find ourselves engaging in. We can also start to see how our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors really impact the rest of our day and the choices that we make. And when we become aware of these unhelpful patterns, then we have a choice. We can start to change them if we want to. We can realign them with our values and what we know to be true. Let's look at an example. Let's say our situation is that, our significant other or our partner takes 3 hours to respond to a text. That first automatic thought might be, I am not important to them. Then we might feel rejected, sad, maybe even angry. And that might lead to us maybe being a little passive aggressive to them the rest of the day, or maybe we don't respond to them at all. And this likely would lead to not really being able to focus too well, either at school or just in our job, whatever our daily life looks like. But let's take a second look at this same situation and try to look at it from a new perspective. Maybe instead of that first thought where we were thinking that we're just not important to them, maybe instead we think, even though they may not have time to text me throughout their day because they are really busy as well, I know that they care about me because of X, Y, or Z. And from there, we probably are pretty unbothered. We'll probably feel pretty content. And maybe we even feel gratitude and loved because we took the time to reflect on how we know that our partner really cares for us. And this will probably lead to just carrying on with our day as normal, responding to our partner as we typically would, and maybe we would even show that gratitude to them. Simply changing our thoughts or even the words that we use can have a huge impact to how we're feeling about ourselves, how we're feeling about others, and really just how we're going about our daily life. So if you want to put this into action, start by jotting down what happens to you during your day. Jot down your thoughts, jot down your emotions, jot down your responses. See if you can identify any patterns coming about, or maybe you can even see different unhelpful thoughts arising and how you responded to them. By doing this, you can also start to notice any themes come about, such as maybe in a variety of situations, you tend to have that thought of, I'm not good enough, I'm not important. And if you do see something like that, that could indicate a core belief that might be beneficial to explore a bit further. Next week, I'm going to be running through what those unhelpful thought patterns typically are, so that as you're reflecting on what's going on in your life, you can have a name for them, you can identify these things, and maybe you can even start to change them a little bit. So I hope to see you there.